City of Demons contains potentially triggering content, including harsh language. Please listen with discretion.
Greetings, programs. In our last episode, Flo revealed that she is the virus and is on a mission to destroy the MCP. Gwen and Brett reopened the TCP gate and have reestablished contact with Eric. Now they must decide who to trust and what their next steps will be. This is City of Demons. Episode 6. Mutability.
You roll up outside the omnibus emergency repair shop, and you notice that there's another little ATM-looking procedural shift station there. And so you go kind of stand next to it, and then about a minute later, there is a... you see Gwen kind of step out from between two buildings across the street.
You mean Flo?
I'm sorry, I mean Flo. Steps out from between two buildings across the street and is walking towards you.
Cool. Does it seem like she's laying low, or we're out in public and everything's fine?
She's kind of laying low. She just has like her, courier garb on, and otherwise she doesn't really stand out unless she has like the flaming hair type thing going on. So
well, she's real hot. I'm glad she's our friend. For the moment. My trust is hard-earned.
All right, so she approaches you and says, "Hey, I'm glad that you came."
Sure. Well,
we had nowhere else to go.
Well, we did actually have somewhere else to go. We made sure that the TCP gate got opened again.
Oh, that's great. That means I could probably contact Alan 1 again.
That's what we were thinking.
All right. Well, we should definitely think about doing that. But first, why don't you come upstairs with me, and I can tell you a little bit more about what's been happening here.
Sure.
All right. So she leads you into a building, and you take some stairs up to the 3rd floor, and you go out into a hallway, and this looks very much like a, big city apartment building. Walks down to a door, kind of pushes her thumb up against a pad on it, and you hear a lock unlatch, and the door swings open. She takes you inside a fairly small apartment, I will just, say, for lack of a better term, and you walk in, and the first thing that you notice is there is a armchair, and there is what appears to be like an old man that's just kind of like resting in it. And he kind of like looks up and says, "Oh, hi, Flo. Bring some friends back with you?" And Flo's like, "Hey, Creed." And she kind of like walks over. This is Gwen X and Rev X. And they're just some friends. Are they helping you out with your work? Yep, that's what they're doing here. And Creed stands up and is like, "Nice to meet you. I'm Creed. I'm an old cassette reader and exporter of enumerated data. Don't have much need for me around here anymore, but they still keep me around. So are you all pen testers as well?"
Look to Flo and see if she wants us to say yes to that or not. If she gives any indication.
She's just like, "Yeah, they're helping me out with some testing that I'm doing." "All right, well, go ahead, be about your business then." And he kind of sits back down.
Well, yeah, hey, it might be old, but you never know when you're gonna need that old hardware working. So Glad you're here.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, young program. All right. So,
Wow! What? I can't believe we just met a cassette program. Not really. Just
So Flo just kind of like she like smiles affectionately towards him and leads you all back to a separate room that like is her room in the back, and she like opens up the door, allows you to enter, and you see that there is. It almost looks like like a detective's like investigation room. There's all kinds of like information and like photos that are just like scribbled down around and things like that, where she's been like trying to like piece together how to accomplish this task that she is here to do. So does that kind of make sense to you all? Okay, cool. She closes the door behind you, and she's like, yeah, Creed is a sweet old program. He's been letting me stay here with him. I think he was mostly just lonely, but I needed a place to stay, and he offered to let me crash here, so yeah.
And I go look at her murder mystery board and try to see if I can like figure out what I'm even looking at, scrutinizing all the bits and pieces.
So you see photos of a lot of different programs that are set up on the wall, including a couple that you've met, like the MCP and Crypto. There's a few others that you don't recognize. You see one that is labeled Pseudo that just has like a big question mark kind of written down on it.
How's that spelled?
SUDO.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And you just you see lines that are kind of like tying them all together, and there's a couple of chairs that are set up there, and Flo just kind of like goes and just like crashes into one, like she's had a long day, and she like invites you to take a seat as well.
I mean, may as well.
Sure. I make one last like sweep of the board and sit down.
Okay.
Do folks sleep?
Yeah, we do like there's like this I know that users are used to sleeping fairly often. We enter in kind of like a rest state in between cycles. It's fairly short. I don't know if it would really be the same thing as what you would call sleeping, but I guess it's the equivalent to it.
It's like, I put my computer to sleep all the time.
Yeah. Well, that would be different than like a system shutdown or a reset. Very different thing. She almost kind of like shudders at the thought of that a little bit.
How do I feel physically right now?
You feel relaxed. You feel like you could probably use like a pick-me-up of energy if there was one available. Is that what you mean, or do you mean in some other way?
No, that was just what I was like. I was wondering, like if Gwen is experiencing any kind of like fatigue or different sensations.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be pretty apparent to you that like when Flo is doing her whole like burning hair thing, it's like highly draining to her. And it's probably not the kind of thing that she could sustain for a long time. And probably needs time to recharge after it. So, you know who Incom is, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with one of the largest software developers in the world, yeah.
Okay. Well, in the late 70s and early 80s, Incom decided that they wanted to develop some way that programs and users could interface more directly. They wanted, the thought was that if that could happen, then programs could be developed on a much more rapid timeline with much more complexity than anything that had ever been realized before. So, as part of their artificial intelligence research initiative, the Incom invented the grid. And the grid is an additional interface layer that sits on the interface stack of the computer. It allows programs and users to interact with each other in a way that makes sense for them. Think of it as like a translator between us.
You're talking about what's happening to us right now.
The grid was never initially intended to have users come onto it in the way that you are. It's only happened one other time that I know about to a user named Kevin Flynn.
Out of character, isn't he like Bill Gates in terms of how popularity, or is he a little more obscure?
Well, he was the CEO of Incom for a number of years until he, suddenly mysteriously disappeared. So I would guess that yes, you probably have.
Well, then I guess Brett and I exchanged glances.
Yeah. Like the equivalent of saying I'm sucked into a computer, and by the way, Steve Jobs was here one time. So I'm like, wait a minute. You telling me Kevin Flynn was in here like we are now at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Honestly, until I met you, I wasn't really even sure if it was the same thing. I don't think that Flynn ever told Alan 1 about actually coming onto the grid like this.
So but a similar situation?
Not here specifically, but on a different grid, on the mainframe of Incom. He was pulled into it by a program called the Master Control Program, which was written by a man named Ed Dillinger, who used to also be a software engineer and eventually CEO at Incom. What eventually came to light was that Dillinger was plagiarizing other developers' work, and so he was eventually fired from that. But the MCP was his creation. It originally started off as a chess program, and Dillinger programmed into it a desire to continue to expand its own power. And as it gradually began to take on more and more functions of the system that it inhabited, it started to control more and more, and eventually became the centralized source for controlling everything on their system. When Kevin Flynn was pulled onto the grid, he worked with a program named Tron, who was created by my user, Alan 1. And together, they destroyed the MCP. Because at that point, the MCP was starting to expand and take powers from systems outside of its own. It was very close to breaking into the Pentagon and taking over its systems. And if something hadn't been done to stop it, there's no telling where we would end up now. The only reason that I know that Flynn was actually there is because Tron's code is part of me as well. That energy or whatever it is leaks out of me.
You talking about your hair?
Yeah, I guess so. That is the Tron function that I'm activating. Anyway, fast forward a little bit. Dillinger is fired from Incom, Kevin Flynn takes over, and Incom is producing their operating system that has become the most widely distributed operating system in the world.
I run Incom OS.
Well, someone got the bright idea to take the code base for the Master Control Program and repurpose it to an antivirus software called the Malware Control Program. The problem is that desire, that hunger to continually expand its own power and influence remained from Dillinger. And now, the new MCP is the most widely distributed antivirus software in the world, and it's continuing to do what it did before. So, Alan 1 recognized this for the threat that it was, and he created me to be planted onto this system to take it out.
Well, if Alan 1 works at MCOM, why doesn't he just shut it down from the inside? Why does he have to go all the way around?
Yeah, why does he have to blackmail our friend to do it?
Because he is a executive there, but he's not in charge of everything, of all that completely. Kevin Flynn's son is the largest shareholder in that organization, and he would presumably be able to come in and stop it, but his son, whose name I can't remember at the moment,
Sam.
Sam Flynn, appears to have no interest in anything that's going on here. And if Alan were to come to the other people at Incom and try to explain what happened, he would have to come clean about hacking the Incom mainframe and sabotaging the MCP. It's just too much of a risk. It's something that he wasn't willing to do.
Well, okay then.
So if he knows they'd be unwilling to do anything about it and or not believe him, this is the only other way he could do it.
And we're just collateral
Stuck
damage.
in the middle.
Because the MCP brought us here to try to stop you.
That's what it told you. But that honestly doesn't make any sense. Because,
Yeah, because we
no
don't know
offense,
anything.
Yeah.
you don't really know what you're doing here.
Right.
And the only reason that we're together is because I approached you. And frankly, I could have taken you out if I had wanted to. So that leads me to believe that there's some other reason that the MCP wants you here. And I'm trying to figure that out. And it's probably why we need to try to contact Alan 1. But, maybe he could provide some insight into that. But
Well, if the gates to the internet are open, how is there any way we could get you to contact him?
yeah, we can try to do that. But I do think that there's a level of danger here that you all may not be appreciating. The master control program is, or I'm sorry, the malware control program is still trying to find me, and it expects you to be doing that as well.
Okay, well, I just had a terrible thought. We don't know why the MCP brought us in. You'd have to assume if you're going to take that risk bringing in two users who you probably can't really control, but they serve some sort of purpose, have to be serving a purpose that has some sort of effect whether or not you can control them or not.
Like using up too much memory?
Or leading anyone right to where flow is? Can they track users on the grid?
I don't know. I don't think so. Otherwise, I think they would have stormed this place by now, frankly.
Or maybe they're waiting. I don't know. I'm just saying whether or not whatever the MCP's plan is, it's relying on us to bumble around because our not knowing anything is somehow working to its advantage. Otherwise, it would have picked someone else.
The other thing that he did was creating this grid, which changed the way that I have to interact with him and every other program in this environment, and it's suddenly much harder for me to do that.
Well, how do we get in touch with Alan 1?
Well, we can go to another I.O. gate, and I can try to establish communication now that you've opened up the TCP gate again. But I think that ultimately you're not going to be able to leave until the MCP is destroyed.
Well, and it makes me wonder, like, if the MCP is on a lot of different computers, then what on earth is so special about what the Air Force is doing on the floor of E3? Like, the robots and the arms and all that stuff, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something involving national security that's a bit beyond all of us.
Yeah, like you couldn't go home to your home computer with the Encom operating system and upload it there because it won't connect to where the real problem is, which is probably on a military server somewhere. And if this has a direct link to a military server, then...
Alan 1 was able to get a hold of a little bit of classified information for the military because as he was tracking the movements of the MCP and its expansion of powers. Right now, the Air Force is developing a program called the Predator Drone program, which involves remote piloting of essentially bomber planes to carry missiles. And Alan's concern is that the MCP would be able to take control of those functions and have a real-world weapon that he could use to influence things there.
So he would go full Skynet.
Or Zevo Toys. Okay. That's really bad.
So Alan knew that the Air Force was going to be presenting here at E3, and he knew that he had to find some way to load the virus directly into the source. Otherwise, if what happened here happened now, the system would be, inoculated against it, and we wouldn't be able to do anything. The MCP would essentially catch wind of it before, and be able to act before we could. Again, we had to have the element of surprise to spring on him. And your friend and you all getting caught up in it was a calculated risk that has backfired somewhat.
Is there a chance that we were selected by mistake and that they meant to get Eric? Because Eric created Flo?
No, Alan created Flo. Eric created Cat.
Eric created Cat, okay. Well, Eric's the one who uploaded Flo.
Yes.
That's what I mean. So, if maybe they were aiming for Eric and got us instead?
Maybe. He is a hacker. He would know what he was doing more than we do.
So either we were chosen specifically, or we were a mistake.
Well, either way, we gotta get out of here.
Right.
And maybe what you were saying about the element of surprise, I mean, if the master control unit expects us to deliver you to it, or if the malware if the MCP expects us to deliver you to it, then what if we do that once you're ready? Pretend like we're doing what it asked, and then
plug you in, but you're actually super awesome and better, faster, stronger.
Thinks that we got you tied up, dead to rights or whatever, and then you spring to action and destroy it.
So, when I said destroy, it's actually not as simple as that. I need to merge my code with the MCP, take over control of its functions, and release those back to the systems that it had before. I would essentially become part of a new MCP that would have that desire for power expansion removed from it. It would continue to function in its other normal parameters, but without that key component in it.
So how do we merge you with that?
So basically, I need to have level 5 access to the MCP. Once that happens, I can... You've seen it, right? You know what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when Tron destroyed the original master control program, he did it by throwing his disk into the conical center that it was spinning on. But he was only able to do that after Kevin Flynn jumped into the top of the cone to distract the MCP. I essentially need to jump into the top of the cone again, and that's how I'll be able to merge my code with it.
And we can only even get you close if you're at security level 5.
Correct.
What level are you now?
I'm at level 0.
And we're at level 1.
How do we increase security levels?
Do you remember what happened back at, not Terminus, but at Calibris with the pile of bits on the floor?
Sure.
Yeah?
We have to do that with someone who does have the higher level access than we do.
So derez somebody with a higher level access.
We don't have to derez them, we just have to get a hold of their disk. And I need about 5 minutes to copy the security level off of it.
Well, geez. Aside from the MCP's fortress, where else do high-level security programs hang out?
She kind of points up at the walls and says, I've been researching that exact thing. The other issue is that I have to build the security structure in order. So we have to start with level 1, then add level 2, add level 3, add level 4, and then level 5. It's not like we can just go get level 5 and get all the other levels along with it. So, may I see your disk for a moment?
Sure. I flip mine off and hand it to her.
And she kind of takes it and she holds it in her hand. She places her other hand on top of it, and you see the same type of energy that enters into her. And she, hands it back to you and says, Your level 1 access is now imprinted on my disk. However, it's only temporary. It'll only stay there for about an hour. My hope is that what you were able to do back there at Calibris, you'll be able to do again with your own disks. As users, you'll be able to make permanent modifications to them.
As users, can we make permanent modifications to your disk? Like once we have the clearance needed?
No, but I think once you've made the permanent modifications to your disk, I can copy the structure back over when the time comes onto my own.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I think so.
And again, this is all only necessary because the MCP created this grid unexpectedly, which is necessitating all this. It was a very simple process before, but now I have to jump through all these literal hoops to do all this.
Okay, well, who's if you're level 1 now, who's your level 2 program?
So through the research that I've done, level 2 access is being held by a program named Bash. And what I've been able to find out is that in a few millicycles, Bash is going to be throwing a end of cycle thread to do memory raising for the MCP on behalf of the MCP. So a thread is kind of like a party, I guess. I think that's what Alan called it.
Okay.
So there's going to be a bunch of programs that come together, and they're going to be interacting and
donating memory to the
and celebrating the end of cycle and donating memory, yes, to the MCP and his efforts.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to get in our fancy party outfits, Brett.
I mean, that's just...
You always wanted to play James Bond, didn't you? Like an American James Bond?
Sure.
We almost did that spy picture.
Yeah. And so, but either we have... So once we're in, we'd have to either get Bash's disc and then copy it ourselves, or what? What would be the safest course of action without alerting anyone?
Well, we would need to get a hold of his disk, and I would need to have it for about 5 minutes to copy the access off of it.
And what if we just derezzed him?
That would bring a lot of attention, I'm sure.
Well, sure it would, but...
fundraiser for the...
Does the disc stay behind if someone's derezzed?
Yes.
Just covering my bases, Brett.
I mean, you're talking about derezzing somebody in a large gathering who is raising memory for the MCP. I'm pretty sure that would draw a lot of attention opposed to,
Well, I mean, but also, getting close enough to somebody to get their disc off, that's a whole other thing, you know? Like, I'm just saying, you know, at least we know there's an extreme option, and then there's the one that's a bit more tactful.
Is there a way to put programs to sleep?
There is a demon that can make programs sleep. So I guess one thing I should probably explain about this world. Demons are kind of like programs. Well, they are programs, but they're programs that are always running. They operate independently of a user request, and they perform important functions that are always being called upon by the system. They are in charge of more memory. They have more access. There is a demon that can make programs sleep, and I know that it will be at the party or at the thread.
But it's like personified, like we could walk up to it like any other program.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oof. All right.
There might be another opportunity as well. I know that one thing about this thread is they're going to be playing a little bit of a game while they're there. And there's a buy-in of 10 kilobits to get into this game. But the programs are going to be obscuring their identities, and you'll have to, the players will have to interact with one another and ask questions of them. You're not allowed to lie when you provide an answer, but you can give only half-truths or, withhold or obfuscate information. And a program is allowed to ask 3 questions before they have to move on. And if one program guesses the identity of another, then they can request their disk to verify it. And if they're correct, then that program is removed from the game. And they're going to have some kind of a prize for whoever's the last program remaining. But that might be an opportunity to get a hold of Bash's disk if you could identify him and act quickly on it in some way.
Sounds like a game of Silicon Valley roulette. What does Bash want? What's Bash's primary function?
Bash is a user interface demon.
Hence the disguises and stuff. Well, I guess, I don't suppose you have, however many kilobits that was to,
I mean, I got 80 bits. There's 10 kilobits to be in. Can we observe the game even if we're not part of it, or is the whole party, it's like a...
Sure, there's going to be about 200 programs there, and not all of them are going to be playing this game.
So we could, in theory, even if we don't play, we at least could... If we can't afford to play, we can at least watch and observe and see when Bash is there. If he gets revealed, or process of elimination, figure out which one is him, and then talk to the sleep demon. And maybe convince them to help. I don't know. Do demons have... So if Bash has a disc, does the sleep demon have a disc?
Well, I guess this wouldn't be readily apparent, but... So one of my abilities as a virus, or one of the things that's been built into me, is the ability to take abilities from other programs.
Right, you can give us a function.
Right. If I can get close enough to sleep just to touch him for a bit... then I could, take his ability for about an hour and then even pass it on to you.
Give it to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Would it be safe for you to go to this party?
I think so. I mean, I don't think my cover hasn't been blown, as far as I know.
Well then.
Yeah, all they know is that there's a virus. They don't know anything else.
What kinds of things do programs wear at fancy parties?
Cut to you all walking into the party and you have all these I don't know, flowing glowing robes and stuff on. I don't know. So Gwen kind of pulls up. You're looking through photos that she has posted on the wall of the various programs and demons that she's been researching, and you can kind of get an idea for what important sort of finery that they are wearing. So use your imagination, get creative. You're
okay.
Users, you define what is cool.
Because we changed our costumes to begin with.
I know.
We can change it.
I know. Flo, do you have another room aside from this one?
I don't, but Creed might. I mean, there's other rooms in here.
Okay. Brett, can I borrow your wrench for a second?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll be right back. I'll toss the wrench idly in my hand and stroll out and go pop in and ask Creed if hey Creed, do you have another room by chance? Not to stay in permanently. I just looking for another room for a moment.
Creed is just he's just on the recliner or whatever, just asleep. So programs, I guess they do sleep.
Creed, tap tap tap. Creed.
Huh? Oh.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Was it Gwen X? Was it?
It was. I was wondering. Do you have another room? I don't need to stay here. I just need another room for just a smidge, just a moment.
He kind of looks. Sure, just right back there. Help yourself.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Gwen ducks into the room.
You go inside and you look around, and there's there's all kinds of stacked up tapes and things, old data tapes.
Oh, interesting.
It's his tape room.
Yeah, I had a plan, but now I'm really curious. I'll brush things off real quick to try to get a sense of what they are.
They just appear to be old, collected tapes, memoirs that Creed has had, things that tapes that he has read in the past. They don't necessarily have any data on them. It's just sort of like if the program Creed had a memory of the tapes that he had interacted with over time, then this would be it.
Right.
So.
Okay. Interesting. I know that a lot of older systems, like even big corporations, still do use like, you know, magnetic tape systems. So, you know, he might be obsolete, but I wasn't sure if the material he was juggling, you know, maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I guess it's not. So there's something that's been bugging Gwen this whole time. And things have been so nuts that she hasn't really had an opportunity to figure that out. So she's pretty sure that she doesn't have a trans body anymore. And she wants to find out if that's true.
You are, you know, sort of like you're wearing clothes, so you can, you know,
I can
remove
take
them
off my
and
clothes.
you can see
yes.
what you appear to be. You appear as your programming dictates. So you appear as the way that you feel like as the way you are supposed to be in your brain, in your mind.
Yeah, and Gwen felt like she knew that as soon as she had a chance to like not be worried about dying, things just felt different. Her voice wasn't necessarily as low as it used to be, or so she thought. But she also thought maybe she was, you know, fooling herself, or things were different. But it's like she's stepped into a dream where her mind is physically represented the way that she would have intended if she'd had a choice in the matter.
Right.
And that's a pretty startling revelation to her. It's the least important thing happening right now, but it was just important to her that she knew that.
Yeah.
With certainty. Gwen takes the wrench and puts it on herself and consciously alters her body, like, even further. Because I assume that Brett hadn't noticed a difference, in terms of like her former physique or whatever, and she wouldn't have even thought to, you know, she knows who she is, so these changes make sense because she isn't what's between her legs. But the way that she's thinking about moving, or the way that her body is built, now that she knows that, she's gonna make those changes for like wider hips, less boxy shoulders, a rounder chest, and other things that she would have wanted to mold about herself was not like a part of her like inner headspace monologue so much as, you know, who she is. And then she gets to make her dream dress for a debut in a world where, for the first time, she doesn't necessarily have to worry about who she is. She's a user, and that's a threat, but she feels like she could be as powerful in here as she tries to project out there. So, to that end, glowing thigh-high stiletto boots, sleeveless, shoulder-padded jacket with a high collar that hits the floor, and a black leotard with bright white lines that absolutely emphasize absolutely everything about her female figure that she has, like, had since she stepped into the grid and has further designed. So she is ready to look like a fierce program out on the town. Looking like that, she emerges from this dusty tape closet and returns to Flo and Brett, and casually throws him the wrench.
Flo's jaw just like drops, like, user powers.
All right, then hold on. I'm gonna step out and James Bond it up. 1 sec, so he'll leave just real quick to figure out what he'll do.
How did you do that?
So you notice a difference then?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, Brett and I figured out that we could use the wrench to modify our appearance entirely. We could modify something up for you too if you wanted.
Oh. I mean, I don't think, like I said, I don't think my cover's blown. I don't think there's any reason that I would need to change anything.
Well, I mean, it's not like you're not, like, smoking hot as you are, so... What with the flaming hair and everything?
Hot?
Gwen gestures with her hands, like, around her head and is trying to be casual. And pretend like one of the most remarkable experiences of her life hadn't just happened. Yeah. Hot. You know, like, attractive, physically attractive. Is that not something you programs do?
Like, sex?
Like sex?
Ellen 1 told me about sex, but that's not something that's been programmed into my functions.
Well, I think Alan 1 programmed a certain degree of above average human attractiveness into you and the way you move through space.
She's just kind of like looking at you like confused. Like,
I'll say Brett will come back in like a tuxedo-ish, like futuristic tuxedo, except he looks kind of scared. There's something in his face that's like he is alarmed, and he'll say, Gwen, when I was changing, is everything the human anatomy? You still have human everything? Is everything okay, human wise?
Everything's better than okay, Brett.
Okay. Just checking. Everything's fine.
Are you okay, Brett?
Oh, everything's fine. It's great. No, everything's fine. I'm just saying. I just want to make sure you're okay. Are you? I mean, and you're fine. So I mean, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Everything's normal. It's all checks out. It's all normal.
I like your tux.
Thank you.
did you make your muscles bigger?
No. What are you? No. This is how it. You just now used to seeing me how I normally look. But you know, having changed now, I see everything is fine. Everything's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it's always been. Everything's fine. I was worried because we didn't.
I assume your pants aren't particularly tight. They're just normal tuxedo pants that don't leave.
Well, they're a little bigger than what I was wearing before because that was like
Right.
sort of like a spandex thing. But I had to, that was,
Right.
Yeah.
You have a wider seam.
Well,
Yeah.
when you're trying to, get measured for a tux, it's different.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just surprised, but also not surprised. I don't know what I'm saying other than everything's fine.
That's what you're Brett, what you're not saying is speaking volumes.
I don't know what you mean, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to go. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Oh, and I spin around to make sure he notices how awesome I look because I'm thrilled. I'm very ready to go. Let's go to an amazing party and do some crimes.
Just don't want to die. Just don't want to die.
Okay, so after you've made your preparations and you're ready to go, you wait a little bit, and then Flo is like, okay, let's go. And you go outside, you jump onto your light cycles, and your dress and your tails are just like flowing off behind them, and it's quite
Gwen
a sight to
feels
behold.
amazing. She feels so good about herself.
Thanks for listening to City of Demons. Head to patreon.com/Omniverse Media to support this and other surprise RPG experiences. Also, join the Omniverse Discord server at omniverse.media/Discord.